Hey everybody. So here I am with this week's moment of encouragement. Conflict is something most of us try hard to avoid. We dodge those difficult conversations, replay arguments in our heads instead of addressing them, or convince ourselves that time will somehow fix what is broken or lacking. Avoidance feels safer, it feels easier, but Scripture reminds us that ignoring conflict does not lead to peace, it often deepens the divide. Jesus speaks directly into his uncomfortable reality. He teaches that our relationships with others are deeply connected to our relationship with God. According to Jesus, unresolved conflict is not just a relational issue, it's a spiritual one. Sometimes it's fear. Fear of rejection, fear of making things worse, or fear of being vulnerable. Other times it's pride. We want to be right more than we want to be reconciled. And often it's discomfort. Facing conflict requires humility, honesty, and courage. Yet Scripture calls us to something better than avoidance. Romans 12:18, check it out. Peace does not mean pretending nothing happened, but biblical peace is active, intentional, and rooted in love. God cares deeply about how we treat other people, not just how we worship him. You cannot ignore broken relationships and expect healthy worship. You just can't. So here's how God asks us to handle conflict, right? The first is make reconciliation a priority. Jesus teaches that reconciliation should come before religious activity. Matthew 5:23 and 24. God values restored relationships. Reconciliation is not optional for the believer. It is an act of obedience and worship. Number 2, choose humility and take action. Reconciliation does not happen by accident. It requires initiative. Matthew 5:25. Saying I was wrong is often harder than staying mad. Pride whispers that silence is strength, but Scripture teaches that humility is where peace begins. And number 3, remember the gospel. At the heart of reconciliation is the gospel itself. 2 Corinthians 5:18. God did not wait for us to apologize before offering forgiveness. He acted first. And because we have been forgiven, we are called to forgive. Colossians 3:13. So when we consider how much God has forgiven us, our grudges begin to look much smaller. Right? So my encouragement to you today is this. Reconciliation may not always restore the relationship the way we hope, but obedience always honors God. Don't delay what God has already told you to do. Take one step toward reconciliation this week and trust God with the outcome. Thank you. Love you. I'll be praying for you this week.